It was supposed to be a 20 minutes to half an hour conversation. Usually I keep it that. The head of that branch has 4 children, 2 of them okay. With her, it dragged out to almost 2 hours plus. And out of the 2 hours plus, I would say 1 hour is just complete silence. When she leaves that room, she will have to call the husband, the parents, and have to tell the other people in the office. So I had to give her that time to compose. It was just giving time for her to cry. Hello, and welcome to our first episode in our podcast series Elevate, brought to you by E2 Workforce Consulting. My name is Zulfadil Amin, one of the consultants at E2, and joining me today in this podcast is my colleague, Mr. Victor Gan.
Hi everyone, it's good to be here again.
It's good to be here again. Now the term again here signifies that we are quite old-timers in this, but this is a new platform that we will bring our podcast to life series where we will be discussing HR and employment matters. These matters would resolve around compliances, legal matters, disciplinary, performance, and you name it. Everything that we can talk about employment, we are the consultants to do so. So we feel like we have this platform for us to share with you things that are going around in the industry, plus with those that we have in our experiences working in the field. Now we have multiple choices of topics that we can choose from. However, today's topic was single-handedly chosen by Victor Gan. And can I know, Victor, why this topic in our first ever episode?
Managing tough conversations, our topic. So I chose this out of the many topics we have because, in my opinion, this is something that is unavoidable in every HR position. It is unavoidable in every business owner. As long as you are managing somebody, you are bound to have a tough conversation at some point in your career. Okay. So as much as, we talk about the Employment Act, we talk about Industrial Relations Act, dismissal, but this one area encompasses it all in every single possible way. You need to have a tough conversation at one point or another.
Well, I agree with you. Not every day that we have people agreeing with us. And in employment, there are a lot of areas where people would feel that they are being cornered to a certain point, especially when they are under the spotlight. Now, this, for example, would be under performance and misconduct management.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So, like Victor has mentioned, not only for HR to go through this tough conversation, but all levels of people who are managing other employees as well.
Yeah.
Now, Victor, can I start off by asking, at what common areas do tough conversation happen? Areas would mean maybe if I can go more specific, let's start with performance. Now, performance is something sensitive. Now, in which area would you call it a tough conversation?
As long as you're having a performance review, and I think, it's all about if you deliver something nice and good, it's never going to be a tough conversation, right? So if I'm telling everyone that, hey, there's a bonus coming up, there's a promotion coming up, that's never going to be a tough conversation. It's always delivering bad news. That's when you face tough conversations. So under any circumstances, it could be performance, it could be disciplinary, but those are the common examples. It could be an investigation. But let's think about more sort of deeper scenarios here, Zul. Deeper scenarios like mental health. It's becoming a very popular area.
True.
So when we talk about managing someone's performance and the other party, i.e. the employee in this context, would say that, I'm having depression issues, I'm having anxiety issues, that conversation suddenly becomes a difficult one. Right? What about, let's say, when people comes with an attitude? Sometimes when we invite somebody for a performance-related discussion or just a typical discussion about work, that person becomes overly defensive. That person becomes arrogant, rude, emotional. All of this would then become a tough conversation. Even though, I think, if we are managing in a gossipy culture, sometimes we also have to think whether, the person I'm speaking to, does this person come with an agenda, a political agenda within the company? And all of that requires a strategy, I feel.
Okay. Interesting. Now, in the aspect of when we say difficult and tough conversation, can I assume it's the same thing?
Yeah, I would say difficult, tough conversation.
Yeah.
I would say it's the same thing.
Why I say this is because asking for a raise and talking about a misconduct, like, both to me are difficult. Both to me are tough. So that is the aspect that we're talking about. As long as there could be potential conflicts within the communication, it will be deemed tough.
Yeah.
Now let me just square back again to performance, because a lot of times we receive queries coming from our clients regarding the management of putting people under PIP. Because first things first, the character of that person, right? They would consider them to be a tough nut. The moment I talk about poor performance, boom, they explode. Or a person who has a very high ego, right? Who can never be said that they are in a negative side, right? So
Always right.
Always right.
Yeah.
So when keluar a review, out of 10, for example, the rating is 5.
Correct.
And then they explode.
Orang lain salah only lah.
Orang lain salah punya, right? So how do we initiate this kind of conversation? How do we kickstart this conversation to tell them that, hey, look, we need to kick the bucket on this?
Before we get into pointers, Dzul, just something came to my mind. I want to just give you another example of a tough conversation. I think it's, when you work in a particular department or you work in a particular organization, you are bound to sort of develop a relationship with your colleague, right?
All right.
So it's like me and you. How long have we been working together? We've been, 8-10 years.
Yeah.
We've certainly developed a bond between us. A bond that makes us colleagues and maybe friends as well. We go out, we can makan-makan, and now all of a sudden, I need to have a difficult discussion or a tough discussion with you with regards to your performance. I find that to be a very tough conversation to manage.
Okay.
Right? So how do I transform between today's lunch, where we're talking about Manchester United and Liverpool,
Losing Manchester United,
into a performance-related discussion? Where I'm going to tell you that, Dzul, perhaps, you're performing below average and I need you to buck up. I think that's a tough conversation.
The awkwardness that can happen. Right?
Correct. Right. So coming back to your question earlier, you said,
how do we kickstart this conversation?
How do we kickstart the conversation, right? I have a few golden rules myself, I know, and not too long ago, I've managed one MSS, one mutual separation scheme. You were involved in this to a certain extent.
Okay.
We spoke to the client. I'm not going to share names in this podcast, but, I'm driving you towards, you will surely know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I think a few months ago, right?
Yeah, a few months ago, a client reached out to us and said that we need to, embark on an MSS exercise. We don't know whether it's going to be successful. It's going to be a tough conversation because, number one, this person's role is a director in the company, right? Director of something within the company. This person, when we asked about general characteristics of this person, they said strong character, could be very defensive. And, when we hear this kind of hints, we kind of feel that it's going to be a tough conversation, right?
You have to gear up a little bit for the conversation.
Correct. So we started to tell the client that, hey, you know what, if it's going to be a tough conversation in a mutual termination exercise, there's never going to be a guarantee. You need to always have a backup plan. What's our backup plan? So once we put all that together, we sort of strategize and sit down and say, okay, this is how we're going to approach it. But when someone gives us a hint or when we prejudge and we feel that it's going to be a tough conversation, we will take like 10 steps to prepare because we feel that it's not going to go well. When I approach somebody and I feel that this person is an easygoing person, I somehow don't prepare that much. I think that's just normal human behavior. We sometimes take things for granted, right? But, you know how that conversation ended up. That conversation, for purposes of our listeners today, we went for the MSS exercise and it ended up perfectly well, perfectly smooth. What did we do, Dzul? We just sat down there. We showed the facts. We spoke to the employee with empathy. That's number one. We spoke sincerely. And I think we were honest about what we were trying to achieve. Right? So to me, those are the 3 golden rules that I would begin with. Do you have something? If you are approaching someone randomly, that person is, doing well at his job, that person, and all of a sudden you're saying, I need to have an MSS conversation with you. I need to have a performance. And you start off with a very sort of undermining tone or you don't set the scene, then you're bound to have a tough
A tougher
conversation, or an even tougher conversation than what you anticipated. But if you set the scene correctly, there's empathy, there's sincerity, there's honesty in your discussion. I think, that conversation would be easier than what you expect. So those are the initial ground rules that I would have.
I would add one more, since we're talking about that particular case. The last one would be clarity. I think you were very clear to the employee why we're having this conversation. And when I say clear here, you didn't use jargon words to bring this person to the reality, for this person to accept where it is, or what it is as what it is. Okay, if I can also share my example, this was a case that we did a few years ago, where the employee that we have been targeted to MSS was deemed to be an easygoing employee, right? Happy-go-lucky, can accept everything, nothing hard is against him, so on and so forth. However, the conversation went on for more than 3 hours, right? So the conversation went through all types of emotions. First, it was happy-go-lucky, then it was more towards sad, then anger starts coming in, then to a certain level, depression comes in. So that tough conversation, if we are not fully prepared, right? And I have to admit, at that point in time, even the first time I met him, I thought it was going to be 15 minutes conversation. Yeah, so maybe don't undermine the subject, don't undermine the individual. Be clear and concise to what we have to do, and when we have to do it, say it right, or say it clear enough.
Correct. And I think you need to have a toolbox also, and be prepared about the situation where emotions start to run high. So you need to know, as the person, as the HR person or the business owner speaking to the employee, what if emotions were to run high? Then what would I do? Right. So for me, I'm going to go first on this. For me, it would be, first and foremost, if somebody is emotional, then don't get emotional. Right? Because if you have two parties being emotional in that room, you are never going to achieve anything. Right? So if you detect that person is being emotional, be it angry, be it, sad, be it whether that person is crying, shouting, don't get emotional. Keep your cool, remain calm. Number two, I feel it's also very important for the other party to realize that this is not a conversation where I'm trying to get personal.
Okay.
It should be positioned as, this is business, this is work. Because if I start to get if I start to give the sense that I'm being personal, people will feel that, are you attacking me? Are you victimizing me? What are you trying to achieve here? Yeah.
Okay. On top of that as well, there are certain times where you gotta understand the non-verbal aspect of the conversation. This is where you can see that person's reaction. For example, start looking down always, don't have any eye contact. When that person starts losing it by being all chatty, not listening, I think these are certain cues that we, as a person who delivers the message, need to understand and learn as well.
Correct.
Right? Because there's no point of you explaining about the economy if that person has shut down from the moment you say, I'm sorry, you're being let go.
Yeah.
So
correct.
that cue, in some of my experiences even, sometimes you don't even have to say anything. You just have to let the emotions flow. Yeah, so I agree with you. You got to expect the reaction of the emotions coming out. And second, you got to maybe learn on how to manage that instantly. Manage that doesn't mean that you straight away leave it. It's a fight or flight. You decide to fight. Don't do that. We can't do that in those conversations. If I can give some of my tips tips that I've used in the past, especially when it comes to a person leaving a career that they've hold on to for like 10, 20 years. One of the aspects that I would talk with the employee would be on the area of achievements and success that this person has brought, not to the business, but to their own career. Now, I would like to highlight it to them that look, this never undermine you as a person. This is the way things are as a business. But as a person, let's focus on certain growth area. What are the aspects that we can look forward to? And this is where I would jump out EAP, Employee Assistance Program. So that knowing the cue to say things would help a lot in handling tough conversations.
Yeah. And it's also to back yourself up with data, of course. That should be the main starting point. I always like to position it like this. So I don't want to get into a conversation or a negotiation when I don't have my facts right. So I need to be convinced myself that I'm doing and approaching the right thing.
Okay.
So once I have, that convincing power within myself, I then start to strategize about what's my angle, what's my approach, what am I going to say, and what if this thing, turns a little haywire. So those, I think, would be my general rule. And more importantly, also have a backup plan.
Backup plan.
Yeah. What if this conversation doesn't go well? Then what would I do after this?
Okay. I think a lot of cases I see where the many employees or people or subject matter, so to say, is able to overpower the management or the company is when the facts are not right or not enough.
Correct.
Especially in misconduct allegations.
When the employee starts to argue that, no, this is not true.
Betul ke? Dah tengok ni ke? Dah tengok tu ke?
One classic one is, when we talk about performance management, people will always think that I am contributing. Right? Now my manager feels that I'm not contributing, but I will always feel that I'm a huge contributor to the company. I've sacrificed for the company. The company is underappreciative of my efforts. So those are the common examples. And if you have facts and you have data to back yourself up, then I think you sort of, you can all iron it out on the table and say, we appreciate you thinking like this, but this is what we have. And this is why we are approaching this conversation.
True. Yeah, saying things like, I need you to do better, it will not be enough. Right? And this is where managers would lack the skill of bringing the matter forward, at the same time keep it short and simple. Because some managers will either decide, I won't talk much on this because it's super awkward, so I'll just tell you, please do better on this area. Some managers will go too much into the details, forgetting that what are the areas or factors why this is happening. So it's best for you to have the data. You have to measure out what needs to be shared and what the employee can counter for you to react with. Like for example, you're saying my performance is like this. You're poor in getting the sales target. So what are the sales target that this person has achieved in actual numbers? What are the expectation in actual numbers? What are the general expectation of other colleagues, so on and so forth? Now, we're not trying to compare, but we're trying to come up with facts instead of us trying to blaming them out of nowhere. And this is normally how they would feel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, correct.
I've just recently went through a case where I helped a client to investigate on a sexual harassment case. Now, it's a very early on in the investigation aspect. So when we do our investigation, we realize that the person that is being accused is someone who's very hostile, right? Who will be very, very defensive. So at the point of investigating, we have to bring the conversation to a point where we don't feel like he is being accused at this point. But what we are doing is just gathering facts of incident. So like for example, the complaint is directly about this person. Then he was named in the complaint. But throughout the conversations, we never ever mentioned that he was the person in question. But we go along the lines such as that there is an employee of the company that is being accused of certain things. We are trying to figure out who it is. So can you share to us the important or the facts that you know of the incident, so on and so forth. To me, this is a tough conversation is because if from the beginning you straight away say you have been accused of something, you will never get the right facts. Right. Why? Because the person will be hostile, will be defensive. So going back to having or initiating tough conversations, knowing the facts, anticipating the emotions, and also knowing the cues on what to say and what not to say will be very, very important.
Correct. If you want to go deep on this, you should also put yourself in the position of the other party. As an employee, coming back to your sexual harassment case, the employee will be thinking, do you have proof? Maybe you have a little bit, maybe you don't have a little bit. I'm sure you can't buktikan this case. That would be sort of like a cue for me to be defensive, for me not to cooperate with you.
Correct.
Right? So you need to put yourself in the shoes of the other party and start to think about what would they argue? Why would they argue in this manner? Right? Those would help you establish your case and the facts of this matter.
And getting to a point of making the other party understanding why this conversation is happening, I think it's also best for you to not go away from the behavior or the performance issue. Try your best not to touch about characters here. Try your best not to mention, hey, in the past you were like this. In the past you have this character of doing such things. The moment you start away take things personally, like how Victor has mentioned earlier on.
There's judgmental also.
Don't be judgmental. The whole conversation cut out. So this is where we see a deadlock. Deadlock means you're not going anywhere with the conversation, except to court.
Okay, legal considerations though.
Okay.
In all of these staff conversations while speaking to people, do we need to consider any sort of legal implications?
I raise the most common issue that will come from this: forced resignation or constructive dismissal. To a point where they feel that the conversation that they are having is not going anywhere and it feels like it's victimizing, that is where they would choose to just cabut.
Yep.
And then Surat Cinta from JTK will come. So usually, from the legal point of view, we as a person who gives the communication need to be fully aware of what are the things that we cannot say that could trigger resignation or forced resignation. Like most common one is, I think it's best for you to tender. Habis, you got that on recording, case out.
Yeah.
Right? Second, you should also consider areas such as not forcing this person to feel as if that you are picking things out of the blue. This is where you can't substantiate what you say. For example, people say that you are lazy. Who are these people? In what area are they lazy? So in my opinion, the moment you start putting things that making them feel they can't fight back, they will just go off on constructive dismissal. Worse, if they will first study on the harassment part, study on the bullying part, grievance, whistleblowing, a full package to show that I have no choice but to leave the organization because this person has been harassing me. But the person has the best of intention to talk about disciplinary, to talk about performance.
Yeah.
What else do you have in mind when it comes to legal implications?
I think what you have spoken about, Zul, is really sort of like the end game for the employee, right? I wouldn't go there.
Okay.
For me, I would think about confining it to when we're gonna approach a tough conversation. We know what's the end game that the employee might be thinking about, but are there any legal implications that we need to consider while having that tough conversation?
Okay.
So for me, I would think about the way I'm conducting that conversation. That would be important. So number one is I want to capture the fact that people might spin their stories.
Okay.
So today I'm telling you something in the room. Tomorrow you're telling me something else over email. So I want to make sure that the narrative and the story that we get is crystal clear. That means documenting it. So how do I document it? Maybe my style is I like to have a conversation face to face. This could be anywhere, counseling session or slightly more casual session, not the serious stuff like the PIPs and the investigations. I will always summarize an email.
Okay.
Here's what we have spoken about. Point number 1, point number 2, point number 3, point number 4, point number 5. Thank you very much. At least that narrative is captured right from the get-go. And while having conversations, I would also try to be careful about angles. What kind of angles would the employee take if the employee were to dispute this? So a common one would be, let's say, for example, you put me in a room and I don't have the chance to speak. I don't have the chance to leave. You force me to sit down there for 2 hours to listen to your rambling. So the strategy that I always use is to make people feel comfortable. And for me personally, I like to sit on the other side of the room and the employee is sitting closest to the door.
I see.
So that sort of gives an impression where, sometimes for more serious cases, I will actually sketch it out. Like this is the meeting room layout. This is where the employee is sitting. This is where
the positions
I'm sitting, let's say in an investigation. That just, rules out the possibility where I can't leave the room. I can't go to the toilet. Because the door is just right behind you. You can leave at any time. Nobody is forcing you not to leave the room. So that's sort of like the psychological aspect that I like to have just to make sure my case is rock solid.
Interesting. When you mention an employee, when you mention about the location or the angle, you use the word angle, would they feel in prison at a certain point? Have you been through the situation where they feel that they can't leave the room?
Some people, in some cases, if you've come across this yourself, Zul, employees, when they have nothing else to argue, they will argue things like that, right? They will say that I was never given a chance to leave the room. They put me in the room for 2 hours.
I see.
That is always an angle, right? So for me after understanding that this could be a possible angle, why don't we strike it out at the very first instance? Yeah, so
The most common I've always heard is I've been cornered by 5 people.
yeah,
Itu paling takut lah. So
correct.
I feel intimidated. I can't speak. I can't do that. So the
Correct.
number of people in that room will also be a factor in this
Yes.
communication stages. Huh?
And this, of course, leads back to the end game that you were talking about, right? But this one is the basis of them establishing the fact, saying that there is duress. You forced me to do this, you forced me to do that, and therefore I think that whatever I said in the room is no longer valid because that's not the true narrative. So for me, is capturing the true narrative is so important. Number one, have the chat, have it recorded, have it transcribed, or have it summarized. It needs to be documented. Number two, what other possible angles can they argue? Did I force you to do anything? Did I promise you something in return for something else? I would rule all of that out first. So even if you have the end game in mind and later on you want to bring that right to the end game, I know I have a rock solid case.
Okay, the elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
Should we record these tough conversations?
I wouldn't do so at the very first instance. If I have a recording every single meeting that I attend, it's just going to bring negative vibes within the workplace.
Okay.
But when it gets serious, I would do it.
I see.
No, recording is also a taboo because the employee would come and, secretly record something. For me, I would be, like I said, honest and sincere about it. I'm not here because it's personal. I would be very upfront and honest about a recording, and I would also give a recording to the employee just in case the employee requires a copy or a version of that recording. So I will tell the employee there's no need for you to secretly record anything. I have the recording. And nowadays a lot of conversations are done online. That's, in my opinion, that's a very good avenue because you can record the entire session just to show how you have conducted it and how you have been reasonable and fair in your processes.
Agree. I personally think that recording can be hostile if from the get-go you say that we record because we are afraid of things going to be sour, we are afraid of things going to go north. But I agree if you start off to say that this conversation is for you and I to keep as a record.
Yeah.
So involving that person to say that, hey, we're going to give you a copy as well would be great. On top of that, I also like to put at the back of my mind, and I will tell managers before they enter communication, assume you are being recorded. So that they'll be very careful in what they say, knowing that it won't go against them again.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And it's also what you say, which is very important. Like we've mentioned earlier, the approach and the angle in how you say things. I sometimes realize that when you start off with a very sort of like a negative, when you start off in a negative way, that whole conversation can be derailed. But if you start off positively, you can actually, on a step-by-step basis, achieve what you want. You may not achieve it instantly, but you're sort of strategizing your way throughout the entire conversation. I want to have a tough talk showdown with you.
Now?
Yeah, let's try to do it now, Zul. Because to me, right, I'm just gonna act out as an employee. All right. Then put yourself in a position as a HR person or a business owner. Okay. Try to think about it this way. I'm gonna say, as an employee, we are in the room now.
What was the matter about?
Okay, let's say it's about a performance. Okay, PIP. And I'm gonna say to you like, boss, your PIP is unfair. You are the one that has all the power to give me the rating of 1 or the rating of 5. And now you give me the poorest rating, and then you are starting the PIP here. You are never going to be fair to me.
Okay, fair. Now I think that's the first line of defense many employees would say.
Correct. So if I'm being difficult to you, how would you respond to me being difficult?
Okay. First and foremost, I try to act it out, as if like you're the employee. First and foremost, I'd like you to understand that my evaluation and assessment of your performance is purely on your performance, as not as a person or as a character. So when I put this rating is because number one, I was able to show here, pelakon lah, I'm able to show that there are figures that you are not able to achieve. And point number two, you did not do this multiple times, and I have on record how many times you didn't do it. So all of this would lead back to the reason of why you get your rating. If you want me to show you, let's do the numbers together. That's what I'll do with an employee, to show how objective I am in assessing you as a person, right? That's how I would do it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I like it. I like the fact that you reverse a sort of the negative vibes into the room and you've stated it objectively. I would have done, a very similar version of that. But if the employee pushes and pushes and pushes, I would even go to the extent of saying things like, Zul, I really don't appreciate you behaving like this. I really don't appreciate the way we are approaching this conversation. The objective of what I would like to achieve would be A, B, and C. And by you behaving and reacting like this, it's not going to end well for both parties. So why don't we work with each other? Because this is what we want to achieve. We don't have to like each other. We don't have to love each other. But this is what we want to achieve because we all work for this company. I would be strict in that sense, but I don't think there's anything wrong with what I'm saying. I'm positioning like no nonsense.
Okay.
But objective. All right?
Let me give you one.
Okay.
Okay. This is in the vibe that we had during lockdown until after post-COVID so to say. A lot of businesses struggle. Some people had to close down businesses, branches, on and so forth. So if I'm an employee affected by COVID and you chose me to be let go, and I will say things like, you kaya, all the managers kaya, why don't you take their cars first? Why must you let me go? What would you respond?
Okay. I would start with the basis. Like I said, we need to get the facts right. Correct? So what's the basis for my selection? If I've targeted you because I dislike you, it's going to be a difficult conversation. But if I got my facts to back me up, and this is a genuine exercise, I'm going to tell you, Zul, please don't compare each other's personal lives, and please don't compare what car they drive, what house they live in. First and foremost, we have a business here. This is the org chart that was pre-COVID, and this is the org chart that's post-COVID. Let me explain to you why there is a need to change the org chart. Then once I go through my explanation, I said, now, this is why you've been chosen, not because of your skill sets, not because of you as an individual, but it's because of the requirement of the company, and your role, your requirement is no longer required.
So you walk them through the selection process and why we have to be where we are.
Correct. They might disagree.
Yeah.
And that makes the conversation tougher. But I'm going to maintain my cool. I'm going to maintain, I know my end game. This is what I want to achieve, and therefore I have to maintain it accordingly.
Yeah. Well, as consultants, we are quite lucky that we have this narrative at the back of our mind. But I see a lot of our clients, especially those managers, when you don't build that narrative as to why this is happening, you tend to go to the most simplest answer as to, this is the business decision. Yeah. This is the global decision. This is something that we cannot avoid.
Yeah.
Saying those things, it is true, but it doesn't help the employee's question of why.
If we have a question on what to avoid saying, those would be the examples I would say. I wouldn't say any of those things. I wouldn't say things like, because I'm the boss, I've decided. I wouldn't say things like that. I wouldn't say things like, head office has decided. I don't know the reason.
Yeah.
Those are not cool answers.
And trying to play safe doesn't help. For example, you try to say things like, hey, I'm just a messenger. It doesn't really help though.
Yeah.
It could help if at the end of the day, that guy tried to stab you. I'm just a messenger. Yeah, but when it comes to you managing the conversation, try your best to contain it until the end. And if you guys have to agree to disagree, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I think no problem with that. I like to reverse back a little thing what you said on empathy. I totally agree when you come into a conversation, and my example here would be on misconduct. Yeah, it's very easy for managers to fall back to the reasons of policies, procedures. For example, a person has breached a certain safety violation, tak pakai PPE, for example. So when you meet this person, sit down and say that, hey, based on clause 17, you're supposed to wear PPE all the time. We found you not wearing PPE.
Here you go, warning letter.
Here you go, warning letter. It doesn't help this person to understand the problem and issue in the first place, right? And it also doesn't help this person to explain for the company to know it could not only be him, it could also be an issue with the PPE, right? So there are many things that could unravel if you manage to have the conversation smoothly and professionally. Okay? Right. I was told that we have questions that we're going to ask.
Yeah.
Was that the game or would we have another game?
No, the team actually wanted us to play a game though.
Okay.
There's a little red box in front of us.
Okay.
Apparently there are a few pieces of paper inside which we have to draw.
All right.
I think they call it confession time.
let's try this out, guys. So I'm gonna pick one paper from here. There's multiple. So I'll take it and read it.
Yeah. And we got to answer lah. So because you took it, you got to answer it, right?
So let me see. Have you ever been super nervous before a discussion? How did you calm your nerves? I think almost on a daily basis I'm nervous, right? But if I can share first, one of the
I'm supposed to answer as well.
Yes, obviously. So I ask, I answer, and I answer, then your turn.
Okay.
Your turn to pick.
Okay.
Okay, usually when I try to calm myself, religiously, right? There are a few prayers that I'll say that's very personal level. But on a general level, I would try my best to count my breath. It's quite funny, but I will try to count 1, 2.
Okay.
Right. This has been helping me since my school age, because I've been a public speaker since I was young. So this kind of helped me when I am able to control my breath. So it will help me to control my thoughts. Because some people, when anxiety starts coming in, right? When you get nervous, padahal you are the one delivering the message, you are nervous. It doesn't help. So when you are calm and collected, you are able to keep your calm and posture. You are able to keep your tone of conversation. 90% of the time, your message will be delivered better. That's how I would try my best to keep calm.
Okay.
And there are a few instances where I have spoken in conventions. In the past, there's an IR convention that I spoke for the first time in front of 300 to 500 people. I was super nervous. Victor was there. I almost puked, like literally. Okay, this is a big secret I have to tell. I almost puked because it was a topic that I'm very into, forced labor. At the same time, it was in front of people that are always my attendees, HR practitioners, business owners. So I wanted the message to be delivered well. My panic, I tell you, bergetar-getar, right? You were there. You took videos and photos of me even.
I got evidence. I got photos and videos of all that. That I wanna puke. You know, he repeated that on at least 5 to 10 times. He was at the backstage room next door. I said, Victor, I'm so nervous. I don't know how to do this. I can't think of anything. I can't eat. And I remember your mom was there, so.
Yeah. Oh my God. I invited my mom. She hasn't seen me speaking in public for so long, so I invited her. That also caused me to be more nervous. But again, going back to controlling my breath, it's as simple as counting to 10 with your breath. Help me cool down as quickly as possible when I need to. What about you?
You gave a good confession. Like, I don't know how to talk. Have I been nervous before a discussion? Absolutely, yes. It happens all the time. I think sometimes we don't show it, but yes, almost every single time when we approach a serious discussion, I get nervous. And I kind of, after many years of doing this, I kind of console myself and make myself understand that it's absolutely normal for you to be nervous. Because the nervousness would show that you actually care about the outcome of that particular discussion. So if I'm not nervous, I'm worried. So it kind of tells me, my internal systems, that, hey, are you taking this seriously if you're not nervous? Right? So have there been occasions? Many. What do I do typically to calm my nerves? For me, is I'm a person who needs time.
Okay.
So if I know that I'm going to have a difficult conversation, I will make sure that I have, at least 1 hour where I can sit down. I have my own me time. I can replay the scripts over and over in my head. And even if it's a presentation, I get very, very nervous before a presentation. And I need to be there early. I'll be sitting down in my car for 45 minutes, just rehearsing, thinking about what if this, what if that. So I guess my answer is I need time.
Preparation time.
Yes, I need time just before that nervous event for me to sit down and get my thoughts together. What do I do to calm myself down? No, I just repeat whatever that's about to happen. And once I feel I'm convinced, then I'll get down from the car and approach it. You also realize that every time you get nervous, but then once you do that thing, it
goes away.
It just instantly goes away, right? So it felt like, I didn't know what I was nervous for.
True.
But it comes back every single occasion, every single time.
I think you've done it 100 times, or 100 times you feel that nervous.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question.
One more question, is it? Shall we take one more?
Please take an easy one.
Okay, last one. This one I answer first, is it?
Oh, yeah. You ask, you answer first.
Tell us one tough conversation you've had to do in your career that still haunts you until today. Oh, wow.
Ooh. One, I have 10 in my mind.
One tough conversation you've had to do in your career that still haunts you. That means you're still thinking about it.
Every now and then. It haunts you, it scares you in a way.
Okay, I would change the word haunts. I would share one example,
Okay.
but I don't think it haunts me. It's just in my mind.
Okay. It's distinct enough to be remembered.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't think I will ever forget this.
Alright.
So I don't know how many years ago this was. Probably 2016, 2017.
Okay.
I was engaged for a project to close down a hospital in Penang.
Okay.
Okay, no point guessing. I don't need to guess all the names and all that.
There are multiple hospitals there, so
So I, as we do this job, people closing down, people retrenching and all that kind of feels a bit, it happens every single day. Everybody is doing a reorganization and all that. So to me, okay, there's a company in Penang, there's a hospital in Penang that, that's going to close down. So I'm going to go and deliver the message. So we did all the work of preparing the letters and all that. So this tough conversation was communication day for me.
Okay.
What's in my mind was, yes, I got my scripts prepared. I knew there were going to be some emotions. So I was in a room with, I think, 60, 17, majority from what I can recall, nurses.
60 or 16?
60s, 60.
60, okay.
Yeah, 60, 70 people. We were delivering the message. There were a lot of nurses from what I could remember. But that day, I didn't realize that many of the employees seated down in that room have been there for 30 years, 35 years, 40 years. And when that conversation happened, nobody expected the hospital to close. And I would say 80 or 90% of the room were crying.
Oh my, shocking tears.
Yeah, now goosebumps starting to come. Because to me, that's one conversation that I cannot forget.
Okay.
Because I never expected, and I've never once in my life dealt with so many crying people in one room. Never once. So to me, that's one conversation that I still think about all the time. I'm sure the people who were impacted, they were paid off, they were given their severance. I hope they're doing well, but yes, I still think about that.
Okay. Yeah, I can imagine the cries, the people sobbing. How long did you have to wait for him to cool down?
I actually stopped.
Yeah, I can imagine. You can't continue. They cry. You can't keep on saying you're gonna be let go. You're gonna be let go.
Yeah. So we stopped that session and we said that everyone, let's cool down. Let's be a bit objective. In the end, the message was delivered. Of course, people had feelings. People were feeling sentimental about the whole thing, but it wasn't a very pleasant exercise to do.
Sounds very traumatizing a little bit. Okay. So I have to answer that as well.
Yeah.
There are multiple situations that I can remember, but for the purpose of today's podcast, tough conversation, I can pull out one. This person is based in the North region. I had to fly in the morning to meet this person. So I flew in at 7:50. I sampai about almost 9, and I have to fly back to KL around 2 p.m. So the plan was for me to have this conversation of delivering the message to say that this branch is going to close down.
Oh, okay, sama, lebih kurang.
Lebih kurang. But mine, I have 7 people only in that branch. 6 out of them has worked there for 20 plus years. One baru masuk intern, right? And the head of that branch has 4 children, 2 of them OKU. Right. So how I got to know this was because when I had the conversation personally with her, it was supposed to be a 20 minutes to half an hour conversation. Usually I keep it that short. I give them the opportunity to speak things and I will close the conversation. But with her, it dragged out to almost 2 hours plus. And out of the 2 hours plus, I would say 1 hour is just complete silence. That's why I remember the conversation.
Okay.
1 hour, if I just compile those hours, 1 hour complete silence. It was just giving time for her to cry. Because it's the reality that sinks in for her. because when she leaves that room, she will have to call the husband, the parents, and have to tell the other people in the office. So I had to give her that time to compose.
So what were you doing in that 1 hour?
I was playing Twitter. Joking. At best, I was trying to put myself available. So I was just there doing nothing. I was just listening. And at times I was just faking going through papers. But I just wanted her to feel I'm there. So me flipping the papers is her knowing I'm there with you.
Okay.
So at times I would just make some noise.
A bit awkward, yeah.
Very, very, very awkward. But I appreciate the fact that she appreciated it was a time I gave her to cool down. Because she did not ask me to leave. She did not walk out. She just cooled down.
Okay.
And then after that conversation, another reason why I remembered, because I almost missed my flight.
Oh, okay.
I almost missed my flight. I was the last person to board it, but I feel like it was worth it. I think I spent my time well to give that message. And even if I missed my flight, I still think I did well for that conversation. So this is one distinct conversation that I will bring throughout my career.
Okay. Hey, these confessions all...
No, yeah, we should do more of this, right?
I don't want to do any more today. We'll save it for the next round.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we're about time, Dzul. Shall we?
Yes.
Yeah, cut short this session. Maybe, we'll catch up this round of the podcast. We've called it Elevate. There is a reason, we're going to post it up on the website for everyone. This time around, we'll call it season 1. And we're targeting 6 episodes. Right? Only 6 episodes. We will then review whatever that we've done. We will, hopefully take some surveys, see what the listeners would like to hear more from us.
Yes.
And we'll re-strategize again for the launch of season 2.
Yes. And I hope you have enjoyed our session. We try our best to maintain professional yet casual at the same time. So do give us your feedback. Like what Victor has mentioned, if you do have things you would like us to talk about and discuss, put in your comments in there. If you feel that there are certain things that we can improve, feel free to do so. We'll take everything constructively, right? And if I still have the time to wish everyone Selamat Hari Raya, kita raya sebulan kan? I hope everyone had a very pleasant time with your family and loved ones during the festive season. Many more holidays to come, don't worry guys. Until then, we'll meet again in our next session.
Alright, Selamat Hari Raya.
Selamat Hari Raya and thank you very much guys.
Thank you, bye-bye.
See you around.